The Big 12 is always tough when it comes to scheduling, but which 5 games will define UCF's football season?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every single day. Joining me as he does every week, back from a short hiatus, is my good friend Andrew Gluchov, independent writer covering all things UCF, a UCF graduate as well, too. We don't say that enough here on this show. But you've been on UCF for a while. Scott Frost is in with the new, out with the old. It is time to kind of turn the page here, but we done a lot of segments on scheduling, Andrew, and talking about what this schedule will look like. There's an article that caught my eye that I wanted to talk about today, written by our friend Chris Boyle over at the Daytona Beach News Journal, and he defined what he thought would be the 5 games most likely to define UCF's football season. We're going to go through that list, and you're going to give your commentary here. I kind of discussed it before we started recording on whether you agree with this list or not. But, kind of recapping for our listeners really quickly, Andrew, what do you feel? What are your overall thoughts on this schedule for Scott Frost in year one? There's some tough games. There's some tough games to navigate here, certainly, but I think that the Knights have a chance to win 6 games.
They do, but they're going to have to take care of business out of conference, and they're going to have to steal one somewhere. Can it be done? Absolutely, but the problem with UCF last year was they didn't win the games they were supposed to win, and of course that's such a low-hanging fruit statement to make. It's like Captain Obvious right there. But the truth is, and you can even use 2023 as well, is the games they were really supposed to win or be ultra competitive at, they floundered. They're obviously an exception to Arizona, but space game, weird things happen. The games that they actually did pretty well in were games they were not expected to be overly competitive. I mean, they took Iowa State, to the limit. They took Arizona State to the limit. Games they were not expected to be competitive with. They absolutely rose to the occasion. And then the games they were supposed to do well, like Colorado, they completely choked and just did not show up. So obviously this schedule is not an easy schedule. It really isn't. It really isn't.
It isn't an easy schedule, but there's some fun on this schedule as well, too. We've talked about what the potential fun is here for Scott Frost and UCF fans, but let's jump into this. Again, Chris Boyle writes for the Daytona Beach News Journal. You can find his work at news-journalonline.com. So just want to make sure that our listeners have a reference point for the work that we're talking about here. The first game up that he has, or should I say the bottom of the list, we start with North Carolina. He has North Carolina slotted as the 5th most likely game that could define UCF's football season. Now, you and I have talked about the possible importance of this game or not. I think it's a good opportunity for UCF to kind of test their mettle versus a Hall of Fame coach. There's some good press opportunity here with Bill Belichick, going up against Bill Belichick. And if you could beat them, maybe you bolster recruiting. Look, ultimately, it's hard to say that a non-conference game is going to define UCF's season, but there is some importance around this game, I think, in finding out what kind of football team you are.
Well, yeah, when you look at the first 2 games they play, they host Jacksonville State, they host North Carolina A&T. Neither team is expected to be overly competitive. So then you're left with North Carolina. That's your last out-of-conference game, and it springboards into the Big 12 season. So are you riding positive momentum? Can you build a 3-0 record going into conference season? Because you're playing that first game the following week on the road at Kansas State, and Kansas State's no pushover school. So, Are you working on positive momentum? Are you working on trying to pull yourself up after a bad loss? There is value in putting North Carolina on this list. I don't necessarily have the number 5, but I definitely have them in my top 5.
Okay, all right. I like that, and great points there on North Carolina. Ultimately, the more you can get in the non-conference, the better, because making a bowl game is going to be important. So non-conference or not, all those wins count toward bowl eligibility, which ultimately that's where you want to be if you're the Knights here. So early in the season, I think it's important if they can get that win that they do. The next most likely game that he has that could define UCF's football season. That was a horn.
That was bad, man. That was bad.
The Red Raiders come in at number 4 is most likely to define UCF's football season. Let's talk about the Red Raiders here. Now, reportedly, they spent every dollar ever printed on their portal class. Reports range anywhere from $10 million to like $30 million that they spend in the portal. They had a billionaire donor come through and just drop a bunch of money and say, hey, look, if buying a team is what we have to do, let's just spend the money and do it. Andrew, this could be a good litmus test for how much spending big in the portal means to having a successful football season. And if you're Scott Frost and you get waxed up by the Red Raiders, you may be able to go back and say, they spent $10 million in the portal. We need money to compete.
Yeah, but with that new system that is supposed to be coming eventually, obviously UCF is going to have to be smart financially, and you can't just go and buy a team. Texas Tech's is playing a real smart game here. They got the money. The Big 12 is still looking for the poster child program. Texas is gone, Oklahoma is gone, so that you have this gap of no real consistent number 1 team. So Texas Tech is trying to find their way in the wilderness to become that marquee program in the conference. So they're doing the right thing at the right time. But it's one reason why I don't have this game on my list, and it's because they spent this ridiculous amount of money. The game's in Lubbock. They're UCF getting waxed in this game, I don't think changes the season trajectory at all. It's towards the end of the season. You'll know pretty much by then if UCF's really in contention, if they're up for a bowl game at all, if the season is a failure. I mean, you'll know by then. It's the third last game of the year. So at that point, what are it going to be? 5-5, 4-6, 3-7, maybe 7-3. Who's to say? But you'll know by that game, by the time that game's done, where they stand. I don't think, getting beaten in Lubbock, which is a tough place to play, regardless of how much money Texas Tech puts into their program. It just doesn't really move the needle for me as far as a game that could really define the season. I view game defining, the season defining games as games that UCF could and should be competitive in. Texas Tech is probably the game I have as UCF being the least competitive in.
Yeah. Look, money is king in today's college football. It talks. Texas Tech is spending it. UCF is trying to find it. Ultimately, this game could tell us a lot about how I talked about needing to spend the money, but it could also be a cautionary tale about how just throwing money at the problem doesn't necessarily solve whether you have a coach good at developing players. And, we saw that at Texas A&M a few years ago with Jimbo Fisher, right? They spent a bunch of money on what a lot of people thought was the best class ever, like 55 stars. Hyperbole, but you understand what I'm saying. And he got fired. They paid $70 million to get rid of him after they put all that money behind him. So money is not always the end-all, be-all. But, hey, our friend Chris Boyle at the Daytona News-Journal says that Number 3 on his list, I was going to do a drum roll while spare our listeners that pathetic attempt at a drum roll. West Virginia. Now, this is a game you and I have talked about. UCF has not done well in this rivalry as of late, but this will be the battle of the retread coaches. Rich Rodriguez returns to West Virginia this season as Scott Frost returns to Orlando. And, both these coaches are in a weakened kind of position going into year one where they have to establish a foundation for recruiting, and winning this game could mean a lot toward bowl eligibility for both of these teams as well.
I had West Virginia number 3 on my list as well.
Ooh, okay. All right.
I thought that was a perfect spot for it. This is a homecoming game. It is a home game. As you said, it's the retread bowl. So, I mean, you have a lot of pieces in play, and look at it where it falls in the calendar. It's the last game in October, October 18th, and they have a bye week. So, at that point, are you going to have a springboard to the final month of the season, or are you going to trip up? I think, this game is very well placed on the schedule. And yeah, UCF has struggled against West Virginia. They have yet to ever beat them. I remember the first time in 2004 when George O'Leary was brand new head coach at UCF, played West Virginia. It did not go well. So, they're, at least for me personally, I would love nothing more than see Scott Frost get a big W over Rich Rod.
Yeah. Look, I would love to see this as well, too. I have long resented Rich Rod for not taking the Alabama job when he had a chance. Could have prevented Nick Saban going there and us having to endure 2 decades of Alabama.
Oh, bitter party of one. Yeah. Bitter party of one.
Yes, absolutely. They seat me right by the bathroom so I could be extra bitter. But look, this could be an important game for both of these coaches. Again, they're trying to establish a basis for saying our program is headed the right direction after year one. You want to get bowl eligible. They set that over under right at 5.5 for UCF. So, we'll see where that one goes. After West Virginia, our friend Chris Boyle says the next most likely game to define UCF season is Houston. Talk to me about Houston. This is a team that went 4-8 in the Big 12, as did UCF last year. And they went 4-8 overall. I'm sorry. They went 3-6 in conference. UCF went 2-7 in conference. But they were in the bottom half of the conference. Not a lot of difference in terms of results between these two teams. Why would a game like this define UCF season? This is a space game, I believe, for UCF as well.
Yeah, and I put this game as number 1 on my list. You don't lose space game. So if you lose space game, just punt the season. Just punt. You are now the GOAT, and I'm talking Billy Goat, not the greatest of all time. I have that as my number 1 game on the season, as far as because look at it where it is on the schedule. You look at the various pieces. It's November 7th, so now you're in that final stretch of the year. It's a Friday night game. It's national television. You are going to be front and center. It's space game. So you've got the hype that comes with it within the fan base and the alumni and media loves seeing, what UCF comes up with. I mean, Uniswag has had UCF win multiple years from their space uniforms. The equipment management team and design team over at UCF is second to none when it comes to their space game designs. I've liked some better than others, but that's not to take away from the meticulous details that they do. For those listening that have not checked out, look up UCF on UCF's website. You can Google it. They have web pages dedicated to the designs of the various space game uniforms, and everything's there for a particular reason. There are constellations on the shoulders. Well, these are the constellations. These are why they're there. The number in 2023 was angled at a certain direction. Well, this is why. It's based off the angle of the curvature of the Earth when of rotation. When a rocket takes off from the shuttle pad in Cape Canaveral, that lines up on the 50-yard line. So that's the angle. So I mean, there's a lot of nuance and detail that go into these. So because of that, we can't discount how important this game is. And if you lose it, again, punt the season. Just throw in the towel. Because I mean, Houston has not been a great team for a while.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you lose this game. I mean, it's just the eggs all over your face in more ways than one. UCF's never lost a space game. So they've been playing them since 2017. Ironically, Scott Frost last year. They've done them every year since. So come on, you can't be the guy who breaks the streak. You can't.
I agree.
So
I agree.
That's why that's firmly number one on my list.
Not a bad pick here. Again, we've talked repeatedly on this show about the importance of the space game, one that UCF has never lost since its inception. And look, it's hard. You don't want to take any game for granted if you're UCF, right? You don't want to look down. This is not a knock to Houston. I don't see this as like their secondary homecoming, so it's no disrespect to Houston. But if you're UCF, you go out, you win this game, and you keep it trucking. Look. Just to recap, our friend Chris Boyle, North Carolina at 5, Texas Tech at 4, West Virginia at 3, Houston at 2. If you're just joining us, this is the top 5 games most likely to define UCF's season. At number 1, he has the Kansas State Wildcats, the game most likely to define UCF's season. Now, let's stick here for a second. I did a couple of crossovers with my friend Christian over at Locked On Kansas State, talking about the schedule. This is the Big 12 opener for UCF. This is their first game on the conference schedule. The Wildcats are number 18 in ESPN's way too early top 25 for 2025. They come in at 18, but they are not the highest ranked Big 12 team in that ranking. So I just want to make sure that I give our listeners a reference point here. At 16 on that ranking, you got Texas Tech. You have Iowa State coming in at 14. You've got Arizona State, the reigning Big 12 champs, coming in at 12. And at 10, they've got the BYU Cougars. No surprise to anybody there that they would be the highest ranked Big 12 team, I think, coming into next season. Showing some love to Arizona State there, even though they have a lot to replace with Cam Scatterboo leaving. But talk to me about Kansas State. This was a team that went 5-4 in conference last year, 9-4 overall. They had a clear path to the college football playoff, and they were one of those Big 12 teams that kind of blew it. And when you look at what happened last year, there were a few teams that had, we talked about Iowa State and BYU being in kind of prime position. Them missing the playoffs certainly felt, it felt like they blew it, right? Arizona State makes it, but I think Colorado had a shot at it, and best believe that the playoff committee wanted Colorado in. They would have been box office for the playoffs with Dion and Shador and Shiloh and all those guys in there. But Kansas State has always been a team with tremendous potential, and I think they pose a tough test for UCF to open their Big 12 schedule.
Well, as you said, Kansas State's one of the better teams UCF's going to face. It's why I don't have them on my list. I expect UCF, to struggle in this game. It's the first road game of the season. I can see why Chris did that, because it's the first conference game, it's the first road game, and it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season. But I mean, I can say, I could almost say, you can kind of mail this one in a little bit, unless UCF beats the tar out of the Tar Heels. Yeah. It's late. I'm sorry. The truth is, unless they absolutely just take them to the woodshed, the expectations going on the road to the Little Apple in Manhattan and taking on Kansas State, who is once again ranked in the too early top 25, I think is a bad combination for UCF, especially for a team that does not have high expectations in season one. It's one reason why I don't have them on my list. We've talked about, the 5 teams that we had that Chris had in his list. And, there was a few that I have on my list. Like North Carolina is on my top 5. West Virginia is on my top 5, and Houston's in my top 5. But I've got a couple other teams that are not on Chris's lists. I want to bring those guys up. I don't know if you want to take a break now. We go into that, but we've been at this. We could probably talk about Chris's list until the cows come home.
Let's get into those. Let's get into those teams
one way or the other.
Break. Right? Yeah, let's get into those teams after the break here. Again, Kansas State comes in at number 1. We'll talk about what teams should have made the list. If there's a must win on the list, and then we'll take a look at some other stuff here. But look. This is an important season for Scott Frost. Is there a must win on the list? We'll talk about that right after a quick words from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, guys. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays, which are my particular favorite. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So whether it's your favorite player and you like betting parlays, or if you like live betting mid-game, FanDuel is the place to do that. And you can do that with $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. New to FanDuel, as I mentioned, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll win $200 in bonus bets, making every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. That's FanDuel.com. Andrew, you mentioned there's some other teams that you may have added to the list. Really quickly before we move on to the must-win, tell me, my friend, which games do you feel like belonged on the list that Mr. Boyle left off?
Well, I'll start number 5. Number 5, I have Baylor, and this is because of where it is on the season. Baylor, November 1st, so it's coming off the last bye of the season. It's a road game. They're going to have to steal a game on the road to get bowl eligible. So that this is a game that can really set the tone for the second, season, the fall when it starts getting a little bit cooler outside. Obviously in Florida, that means 75 degrees instead of 85 degrees. But I see that one as one of the ones that they can steal on the road.
Nice.
They can win this one. It's not like Kansas State. It's not like Texas Tech, which are games that you just don't expect UCF to be as competitive. And Baylor's a game they can take away. Number 4, I have North Carolina. We talked about that one, and it's kicking off into the non-conference schedule. Number 3, West Virginia. I matched Chris on that one. Number 2, I have Cincinnati. Cincinnati is another one on the road, dead center in the schedule. It's October 11th. Another game that they can steal. The rivalry with Cincinnati is pretty strong on between the hedges, and as a result, dropping that game really kills momentum for this team. If you can, even if you only won 3 games going into this, that would bring you to 4-3. bring you to 3-3 because this is game 6. I can't count apparently. Again, it's late. Sorry. But it really has an opportunity to reset the season. So, like, let's assume UCF, opens 3-0. They lose to Kansas State. Kansas is kind of one of those top toss-up games. That game against Cincinnati, I mean, I can tell you from the UCF Twitter mafia, nobody wants to hear the Cincinnati fans, chirping about defeating UCF, especially what happened in UCF basketball. I mean, so there's some animosities there. So I've got Cincinnati as number 2, and of course Houston. We already talked about that, number 1. But I do have kind of like a 6 team with a star on it. And it's because it depends really what happens. I had BYU as kind of that honorable mention. And it really depends what happens as a result of these allegations against Jake Retzlaff. If things go south and, he's suspended, he doesn't play, whatever, this game can climb in and be one of those top 5 games. And as it currently stands, it's not. BYU is a very strong team, with their quarterback in play. However, these, the stuff that's come up still very fresh. Don't know where it's going to go. It's something definitely to keep an eye on. There's some bad allegations against him, assault and stuff, and that we'll let the legal system work itself out. But it could change the complete dynamics of that BYU season, and UCF could potentially take advantage of it.
Yeah. Again, sensitive topic here with Jake Retzlaff. So just for our listeners, if you do not know, there are some serious criminal allegations against him that involve some trigger words that we will not use here on this show. But BYU is probably going to be forced to make a decision about him long before that's actually adjudicated in court. So they're going to have to take a look at it, talk to the young man, and decide whether or not it is in the university's best interest to play him and move on. But you're right, without him, that kind of changes maybe the complexion of that game. So look, if there is a game on this list of all the games that because we've pretty much gone through the whole schedule now, who's your must win? I mean, this is about bowl eligibility in year 1 and moving the program forward. I don't think anybody expects, no reasonable person expects UCF and Scott Frost to compete for a Big 12 championship in year 1 or sniff the playoff. But certainly after a 4-8 season, it'll be nice to see them go out and win some of those games that were winnable last year that they ended up losing. Yeah, I think that Houston or West Virginia is that game for me. What's your must-win game on this list?
I have West Virginia on that one. It's homecoming. It's, we've kind of hyped that game already, but with Houston, coming off a weak season, Cincinnati coming off a weak season, and then you have your 3 non-conferences, that potentially could be the difference between bowl game and not. Obviously, UCF has other home games, Kansas, Oklahoma State, but I think that game against West Virginia is that must win. I don't think they can go bowling without winning that game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a good one. Look, is there a team that they could blow out and give fans a little oomph to, for next season? Next on Locked On UCF. Who's the blowout game? No surprise here for me. I think I would like to see them blow out West Virginia. That series has not gone the way they have liked. Wouldn't it be just nice to see Rich Rod sad as hell on the sideline, wondering what happened, wondering why he came back to the godforsaken state of West Virginia? I would like to see them blow out West Virginia. Now, the space game would have been an easy pick, for a blowout game. We saw what they did to Arizona last year on that game. We saw Dylan Risk have a really, really good game, space game against Arizona. But, for me, I think it's West Virginia. I think they have some potential there with Scott Frost returning to some place that he's comfortable. Rich Rod, while he had success there, I think that he's walking into a little bit more of an unstable situation than Scott Frost is. I like Scott Frost's support staff better. What do you think, Aaron? Who do they have the potential to blow out on this schedule? And you look, if it's nobody, just say nobody.
Well, I mean,
no non-conference game.
Yeah, Houston, in my opinion, is a little bit of low-hanging fruit because it's the space game. UCF space games don't end up being close. Don't.
Yeah.
UCF's margin of victory is basically over 4 touchdowns. It's just the way weird things happen. So I kind of discount that one because I kind of expected it already go that way. But the blowout Cincinnati. I remember in 2017, UCF played at Cincinnati. I remember I was out to dinner and I'm looking at my phone and I stopped for a moment to fill, to go get some plate. I was at a buffet and UCF just scored a touchdown, 7-0. Before I got back to my table, it was already 14-0. And UCF put a beat down on Cincinnati. And at the end of the third quarter, these skies opened up, the lightning and thunder came. UCF is up multiple touchdowns, and they ultimately decide to not even play the fourth quarter. They ended the game. UCF destroys Cincinnati, put up over 50 points in that game in 3 quarters. Now, to add on that, I may have a copy of that game on my hard drive that I may have to watch, before the game this year. But that's the one. And like you have a personal feeling towards Rich Rodriguez, being from Northern Ohio, it warms my frozen heart to see Southern Ohio lose. So I would love to see Cincinnati absolutely curb stomped once again in only 3 quarters because the fourth quarter isn't even worth playing.
Yeah, look, I love that pick as well, too. Hopefully we get both. Maybe we get both Cincinnati and West Virginia curb stomped. But either way, we will be back here on Locked On UCF to talk about it. Andrew Gluchov, as always, I want to thank you for joining me here on today's show. Look, guys, thank you for making Locked On UCF your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.